Hello and welcome to another edition of the Crypto Club and Digital Assets Weekly Catch-Up on Zoom. It is Sunday the 24th March 2024, and if you've not been along to one of these sessions before, we never know quite what we're going to be discussing. It'll be all things crypto, blockchain, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGs, whatever three-letter acronyms really. If that all sounds like a total foreign language to you, then stick around and come and learn. If you're more experienced in the crypto space, then come and join us, contribute, ask questions, tell us about your projects, your information as well. We hold these sessions every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time, and everyone is welcome to join. So we have a mixture of beginners and more experienced people. We never really know what topics we're going to end up dealing with. If you enjoy this, obviously click on the subscribe, the like, make comments. There's a link down below where you can actually come along to a future session as well. Anyway, with that, let's see who's going to come and join us today.
Hello, Gary.
Hey, good evening to you.
Good evening to you as well. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome back to another week, another episode of a session where we never know what we're going to be talking about.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So how are you? You still learning things in the Web3 space?
Yes, I was learning, checking, and inform myself about how to. Well, you know that this is my first question. I think that 1 year ago about how to buy a real estate with Bitcoin.
Okay.
And yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Because nowadays, hopefully, there is a lot of information about it on websites that explain very well the process.
okay.
And it's what I am learning about. And so if maybe you can explain something about it or give, or I don't know, or
Some ideas. I can certainly share with you my experience so far is that in the UK, there have been a couple of cases where people have said they bought a property using Bitcoin, but I've only seen that in a couple of cases. I think in the Middle East, particularly in Dubai, possibly Abu Dhabi, with them being more crypto friendly in general, I think there have been occasions where people have been buying and selling property using crypto for that. So, Bitcoin in all probability. The problem tends to be that these days, anything that is high value, the regulators take an interest in it, the tax authorities take an interest in it, and they get very suspicious when anyone is using crypto to make a payment, and they're always claiming, oh, it's for illegal purposes and that kind of thing. So if you're looking to buy a property, then as far as I know, there's generally no reason why you can't legally agree to purchase that property with whatever you want to use. So, you can use pounds, dollars, euros, Indian rupees, Bitcoin, Ethereum. As long as the two parties, the buyer and seller, agree on it, then you should be able to do that. But the challenge comes when you do something like if you've sold a property in the UK, for example, we have a thing called stamp duty, which is where you have to make payments for any property that's purchased or sold over above a certain amount. And when you're paying the amount in Bitcoin, you then have to work out, well, what will be the tax liability on that? So I think it can be done, but just not very much. Is that what you're thinking about in terms of buying a whole property with crypto? Or are you talking about more the kind of like the fractional ownership of properties with tokens and that kind of thing?
But okay.
So you got two things. When people talk about buying property with crypto, they usually mean one of two things. It's either an outright purchase or sale of a property where Bitcoin is the medium of exchange used, so that the value transfer. So instead of buying a house or a flat in dollars, you're buying it in Bitcoin or whatever. Then the other area is where you're hearing a lot about tokenization of assets. So this is where companies are now setting up whereby it's possible for you to buy a crypto token that represents a fractional ownership,
But is it not the
usually.
same tokenization that buy a house with Bitcoin? Is not what, it's not the same.
No, so you got the two things. One is straightforward. Somebody wants to buy a property, somebody wants to sell a property, and it's just a matter of agreeing which currency you're going to use. So, are you going to pay for it in euros, in dollars, in pounds, or in Bitcoin? That
And
that that's relatively clear, but there's still a tax implication usually.
okay, but in cases where the seller doesn't accept cryptocurrency directly,
Okay, okay,
okay, a conversation process is required.
yeah. Either that, or you go via an intermediary
Yes,
who
being paid, for
provides that
example,
service.
or
Yeah,
Binance or something like that. Okay, but in
potentially, or you can go through an exchange or a company who offers crypto conversion, who will convert the crypto into the currency that the buyer, sorry, that the seller is willing to exchange for.
mhm,
So if you're in Ireland, for example, and you're buying a property that's worth, say, €500,000, but you've got Bitcoin, it may be possible you can go through an intermediary who will convert your Bitcoin into euros, and then you make the payments in that way. But usually, I think it would be if you're the purchaser um, and the seller wants paying in euros, then you'd have to convert your Bitcoin into euros and then do the transaction.
exactly,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but I have the option to pay in Bitcoins anyway.
Yeah. The problem as well is that when you convert the Bitcoin into euros or dollars or any other fiat currency, generally you'll route the payment via a bank in some way, or at least it tends to be an intermediary like a law firm or a conveyancer or something who checks that the funds are available for transfer. And they will normally have to do checks on where the money has come from. So they have to make sure that it's not illegal criminal activity, money laundering, or anything like that. And that's where you sometimes hit the problem that if you say, "Oh yeah, this has come from crypto," they will then refuse to pay the payment, and so that can be a bit of a challenge to watch out for as well. And again, it varies from country to country. The UK is, despite claiming to be crypto friendly, is crypto unfriendly. I don't know what Ireland's like. I suspect it's not that much different, and the rest of Europe for that matter. Whereas somewhere like El Salvador, where they're very crypto friendly,
Yes.
that you know that they've adopted Bitcoin as kind of like their national currency, so they'd be very happy, I imagine, if you're buying something in El Salvador to use Bitcoin for that. So it varies from country to country. And as I say, the Middle East, they are developing a lot of crypto-friendly regulation that will provide the means to do this. So,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that answers in some way what you're asking on that.
Mm.
Then the other thing as well is that you get this like fractional ownership, which is where you'll hear about tokenization of real estate. And this is the idea that rather than using Bitcoin for the entire payment, it might be that you can buy a tiny fraction of a property using crypto. And this is where there's a lot of projects, a lot of them have failed, but there's a lot of projects that allow you to tokenize physical assets. And sometimes that physical asset might be property or gold or a performance car or anything else like that, really. So,
Okay, this is another question because if okay, for example, if I buy a real estate by with token, no, by token real estate, okay,
yeah.
it, I obtain just a intangible asset,
Okay.
intangible.
Okay. It's intangible as in you can't touch it. Kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. So I can use it's just something virtual. Okay, but I speaking about buying a house with Bitcoin is absolutely different.
Yeah. So when you're buying a property with Bitcoin, that's just a matter of choosing which currency you want to use. So as I say, most people tend to use the currency of the host nation. So pounds, dollars, euros, but they could, if they wish, to accept Bitcoin, subject to any taxation considerations. So that's the thing that sometimes catches people out. And as I say, if the seller of the property doesn't want to accept Bitcoin, then you have to convert the Bitcoin into the currency that they do wish to accept.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And okay. And in that case, I will need as well a smart contract.
No, not necessarily. If you've got a load of Bitcoin, and please don't tell me if you have, because you'll be visited by hackers before you know it. But if you've got your crypto wallet has got a load of Bitcoin that is worth, I mean, Bitcoin's, what is it, $65,000 at the moment, thereabouts. If you're buying a property which is like, say, $650,000, then that's roughly 10 Bitcoin. Then you just need to get somebody to convert that Bitcoin into dollars, and you pay in dollars. So, sorry, Peter wants to join in there. Hi, Peter, and I see Ken's joined us as well. Hi, Ken. Peter, you're on. I think you're on mute. Yep, you are.
I was saying hi, but I'll take the Bitcoin. I'm selling my house. I'd prefer the Bitcoin.
And that's it. It's a matter of finding a buyer and seller and who are happy with using an agreed exchange. Sorry, an agreed currency in inverted commas, which they're happy with. So if both sides are happy with Bitcoin, that's fine. If both sides are happy with dollars or pounds, then that's fine. So I just want to say hi to Ken as well, who's come on. Hey, Ken.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, just listening on the Bitcoin thing. In some countries, like in Dubai and I think in Turkey, they actually accept Bitcoin. But I think in the UK, you'd have to transfer it to fiat just to do the paperwork.
You're right. So just before you joined us, I was mentioning the Middle East with Dubai and Abu Dhabi are very crypto friendly and are introducing more regulations around crypto. But the regulation is very supportive of crypto, unlike some other countries. So yeah, you're right. And I think that there's been one or two cases in the UK of people buying and selling property with Bitcoin, but it's been very limited. Whereas I think in the Middle East there's been more cases, and I'm sure in other countries there will have been as well. So yeah, you're right. You're right on that.
I mean, we've had I think there was a gentleman who came on here, and he was doing a UK kind of crypto estate agent.
Yep. So there's Anthony Abel runs TPX Exchange, and they're all around the whole tokenization of real estate, tokenization of property, in effect. So there's two things. What Gabriella was initially asking about was a straightforward, you are buying or selling a property. Can you price that in a cryptocurrency? So, if you've got buying and sellers. So if Gabriella's got a load of Bitcoin and Peter's got a house he wants to sell and he's happy to receive Bitcoin, then that's great. That's a nice simple transaction. With TPX Exchange, that was introducing the concept of having a token that is backed by physical assets like property. And so, as I was saying to Gabriella before, that introduces the idea that you can have like fractional ownership of something. So rather than having one person owning one property, then it might be that property, effectively the rights to it are shared by 1,000 or 10,000 people. Now that does differ from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So I think in the UK, you can only have 3 people down on a title deed for a property. So it's surprisingly small.
Yeah.
And so what you have to do is effectively have a special purpose vehicle. So that's a company that's been created, which owns the property. And then you have shares in that company. And then you tokenize the shares in effect. So that's a way of doing it, which might be more along the lines of the one you were mentioning before with TPX, where they're looking at tokenizing. I think it's mainly real estate, but potentially other real world assets as well. Yeah.
Gabrielle mentioned there about the smart contract. So when you said you'll have to convert it, I don't know if you have to convert the money. You're going to have to pay tax on it if tax is due. But usually you've got to put it into escrow until the contract. But if you've got a smart contract and the solicitor will use pound sterling escrow account, so that you put the money with them, as you know, and then when the contracts are signed, they release it. But if you've got a smart contract, as Gabriella said, then that cuts out. I was looking at, as I mentioned to you, looking at automating that process, the conveyancing, so it pulls all the papers, etc.
You're right. So if you look at the function of a conveyancer, it's that the person who's buying the property puts the money into an escrow account. So it's a segregated account that the conveyancer can say, yes, I can see the funds have been received in this account. And the person who put the money in can't then take the money out. So it's locked. And then the conveyancer can also check that the deeds of the property have been received and that both sides are acceptable. They might have to do some AML checking, that kind of thing. And when they're happy that both sides are ready to execute, that's the point at which you do the transfer. So yeah, you're right, that potentially that could be managed by a smart contract. But in order to do that, the smart contract has got to have the ability of, first of all, checking the crypto wallet in a segregated account to make sure the crypto can't be removed once it's been put in there. But also it would need the ability to validate that the deeds are valid in some way. Now, again, there are companies who've developed things called oracles. So these are trusted data sources, not the Oracle database. And potentially you could have like an oracle of deed approvals or something like that. So you could then do a smart contract that says, yeah, if the deed is clear, if there's no charges against the land registry, and the money's in, then do the exchange. You're correct on that, Peter.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, the Oracle approach. But basically, it's when you buy a house, you've got to do searches on the land, searches on the council tax, all this. So basically, wherever you go to, you've got a form and you've got a hyperlink to it, so it can execute most of that automatically. You can. The AI will take out a lot of that solicitor's work anyway. So putting that in, and the execution phase is, instead of needing the person, it's just an if-then.
Yeah. I often describe a smart contract as just an if-then-else statement.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nothing much more complex than that, logic-wise. But then so are most programs. So yeah. So Ken, what's your interest in the crypto world or the blockchain world?
Well, I mean, I've been here in the industry now for, I'd say nearly, 2024 now, not nearly a decade, not yet a decade. So we're talking here from end of 2026, so quite a while. But what I'm planning at the moment to do is I'm planning to fork the Ethereum blockchain.
Okay.
Because of the Dencun upgrade that's gone through.
You don't like EIP 4844 then?
Well, it's not that. It's more from a first principles point of view. I remember in 2018, was it 2018, 2019? I think it was 2019 actually. It was down at the London University down in Kensington, where Ethereum London had a meetup. And it was actually, I think it was 2018. But anyway, they had a massive meetup in October, 2018. And Vitalik was there. I think even Gavin Wood was there. Quite a few people there.
I was there.
You were there.
I was there. Yep. Yeah.
It was. I remember it was really good. The presentation, and it was all. I mean, he did talk about roll-ups, but roll-ups were not really the key to scaling. Roll-ups were just there to offer for developers who wanted to basically create closed-loop apps. And at the time, but what roll-ups have now turned up, or layer twos, may I say, is basically turned into basically how they're going to scale it. And they're now also talking about, so people, the actual upgrade was not a full because they have this roll-up upgrade they call it Duncan sharding, but they're not even doing the full one. This upgrade is Pro Duncan or Proto Duncan, which means it's even half of it. So the full roll-up, they're saying 2017, and as we know, that would probably be 2030. They've completely given up on execution sharding, which is the way to actually scale, because on layer twos, you can do things quicker, which is true, but layer twos are effectively closed-end entities, so they're not decentralized. And if that's what you want, then fine. I mean, you can go on Base, for example, if you want exposure to a lot of the things that are on Coinbase. Base is great for that, but Coinbase will never let Base become decentralized because they're quoted on a stock exchange and they have certain things that they have to do. Decentralization is not in their roadmap. And it's the same thing. I mean, Vitalik and a few of the guys were talking about recently that layer two should use the same sequencer to decentralize. I think I spoke to you about that. You know, you've got companies like Astra, and I think you've got Espresso systems, but their solution is the same. It's like, you know, we've got this shared sequencing. So you come and build your roll up, your layer two, and you share your sequencing. But most companies don't want to. Polygon wants to keep its sequencing because you can make money and it's basically gives you control. So you basically control the whole network. Same with Base. I can't see them using that. So the bigger ones, you know, OP, Optimism, they will keep their own sequencer, which is fine because I could definitely see a use for it. And like I said, Base is a very good example of a good use of a layer two. But is it going to scale decentralization? No. So that's why I'm just going to fork it, and basically I'm putting together a team, and we're just going to work on do a bit more research on execution sharding.
Okay.
It has worked. You've got Near protocol that uses execution sharding, but Solana uses what they use. They call it parallelize. That's what they use, but it's completely different technology. The reason I'm so bullish about the Ethereum technology, though, is because of the developers. Now, you were talking about the if-else statement. Anybody who does any bit of development, the first thing you learn is how to write an if-else statement. Literally, you say, well, the first one is hello world,
Yep.
and then it's if-else statement. And because Solidity is such a scripting language that's so simple to use, it's just like JavaScript. It has so many developers. And therefore, the others like Move and so forth, it's like you have to go out there and teach all the developers this new language. Well, why do that? Yet you've got thousands, the majority of developers building apps know how to do Solidity, know EVMs. And I just don't see why you should duplicate that. Just, you know, so anybody with an EVM can come along and build on an EVM. And that's basically what I'm doing.
So explain in simple terms what execution sharding is.
Well, execution sharding. Well, first of all, you need to know what sharding is. Sharding is basically it's like a roll-up. Basically, you take the data and you put them all parallel, and then you execute them together, but on the base level. If you do it on L2, you take all the data, you put it all together into one big block, and then you come into the L1 and then execute on the L1. So rather than doing it all on the L1, now one of the major reasons at the moment, which I actually have a lot of sympathy for this, why Ethereum community is very, very kind of like scared of doing it on the L1. It's okay, technically it's very difficult, but that's not really the reason. The reason is there's so much value on L1. It's a multi-billion-dollar chain, and the possibility of something going wrong while you upgrade it is very high, or while you test it or whatever. It's very, very high, and that's why they've given up and gone for L2. So if Duncan upgrade went wrong, it will only affect L2s. The L1 would have just been going on, you know, perfectly. And that's why it's a combination of not just the difficulties, but it's the combination of the amount of value people's hard-earned cash, may I say, or hard-earned, you know, people's wealth held on Ethereum. that's why I think the community don't want to, because if you've got, I don't know, let's say if you're lucky enough to have, let's say, a million worth of assets all locked up on the Ethereum system,
Mhm.
you'd be very upset if something went wrong.
Yeah, and that was the thing that I found fascinating. Was it 2017 with the DAO? That
Yeah.
it was exactly that something went wrong, and it cost some people quite a lot. And
Yeah.
it was, one of the very, very few times where they actually rolled it back, which
Yeah, it's the only time.
yeah, and I found that fascinating. This is where I'll always say, Bitcoin and Ethereum are kind of experiments to prove or disprove things. And what that rollback did was it proved, first of all, the claim that a blockchain is immutable is not necessarily true, because if you can roll it back, it ceases to be immutable. And also, it proved that it wasn't truly decentralized, because it was a primarily relatively small group of people who made the decision to do that. So it was an interesting experiment that disproved the decentralized aspect and disproved the rollback type thing and the way it was done hard.
I'd take another point of view. The rollback, it was just because, number one, it was a smaller community.
Mm-hmm.
The community who voted was smaller. And number two, which is very important, everybody wanted their money back.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was one of those issues where everybody who had money stuck in this DAO was pro rollback. Everybody who did not have money stuck in there was like, well, you can't do that.
Yep.
And or the people who could vote were the people who had ETH or Ethereum Classic at the time. It was ETH at the time, but now it's called Ethereum Classic. So the majority voted it. But I have to say, Vitalik as well, he pushed for it as well, because obviously everybody had it. I mean, I can't think of any big staker or who had Ethereum or Ethereum Classic as it's called now, who voted against. Everybody who had a massive stake in it voted for it. So you're right. But it's decentralized. It's decentralized. Immutable is just for the data. So the data is still there. The data is still there, and you can go and you can search and find the data. So that immutability is still there. You can go and you can find the transactions. You can see whatever happens. The one thing about it is, because it was a smaller community, we were able to do it. At the moment, I don't think that would happen, because decentralization means that there's just people from all over the world. The community is so dispersed. I just don't think it can happen.
You got the thing now as well that there are so many crypto tokens that are now based on Ethereum through like ERC20 contracts, ERC721. There's NFTs. There's all sorts of stuff now.
You've got the new thing of with like Eigenlayer. So you get your ETH, you stake your ETH, you get your other contract, you go and you stick it somewhere else. So you've got a token of a token of a token of a token, all relying on that ETH.
Yeah, and I agree that. So they are now at the point where it could potentially have quite a big impact. But this is true with critical systems elsewhere outside the crypto world. Peter will be very familiar, do you imagine, with nuclear power critical systems. When if something goes wrong with that's like people dying in that, or air traffic control systems, which are complex, and they don't like changing them, because if you go and make a tiny little change, it can cause, potentially life-changing things. So Ethereum is kind of at that level now, isn't it? Where they just don't want to touch it for fear of things. And this is where, I see this in the commercial world, in banking and insurance and that, where you end up with a legacy system that is so many pieces of string dangled together, but it works, and no one wants to touch the innards anymore. So what they do is they touch the wrappers around it, and they put APIs in place or web forms or whatever, but they don't change the fundamental code anymore. So I think you're right. And it could well be exactly as you say, layer 2 solutions. People are now going for those on the basis it's a workaround not having to touch the central core, which it's kind of wrong, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it reminds me of, I remember, I think it was 2020, just before COVID, so it's around February 2020, uh, about a month before we got locked down in London. Uh, I remember speaking, I went to a conference and I was speaking to someone who worked in a bank, and he told me he was, I asked him, what language do you guys use in your bank programming? He said, oh, he only does COBOL. I was
Mhm.
like, COBOL? Do they actually still use that? And he goes, yeah, the whole
Yep.
banking system.
Yep.
And I was like, really? And then he basically told me the same thing as you're explaining. It's because those things were written a long time ago. They're working and they're just so critical. They just don't want to mess
Mm.
around with them. So they keep them going.
Well, as I always say that, because I get involved in a lot of stuff where they're talking about upgrading from the technical debt of legacy systems. And I always say, do you know what legacy means? It means it works. Ultimately, and if it works, leave it alone. So, yeah. So you're looking at doing a fork of Ethereum then.
Yeah, so going to fork it and just concentrate on execution sharding because all the other stuff Ethereum's going to do, you can just basically integrate it because it's the same code really. You can just integrate all the upgrades. And another reason Ethereum is not really too concentrated because Ethereum has got a lot of things that it's trying to do. It's trying to do the scaling issue. Then constantly you've got people talking about privacy. You've got a whole load of people working on the privacy issue. And another thing is the money. So the Ethereum Foundation, they were gifted originally during the ICO, the Genesis block. It gifted it some tokens basically, and that was to do with basically building and obviously scaling Ethereum. That money is running down. I think the last time they sold about 50 million worth of ETH. So I'd say maybe I haven't had a look, but maybe they've got 100 million left, 200, and I don't know what their burn rate is, but they have a very big burn rate. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Switzerland. It's not a cheap place to live.
Yeah.
If you've got a whole load of highly paid developers.
Particularly because I think the Ethereum Foundation is based in Zug, just outside of Zurich.
Yeah.
And yet, yeah, as you say, it's not a cheap place, definitely. So, well, that's interesting. But go on, Peter.
While we're talking about it, just so you don't have to say it, it's in the news now as maybe the SEC is going to do a test case with Ethereum. Now it's moved. They don't want to touch it when it's proof of work because there's some things in the closet, but they say now it's moved to proof of stake, and they can say it's changed because it's not decentralized. But I was just watching the market just to see what's going to happen with ETH and the layer twos, whether they're all going to panic and.
So it's interesting that I believe
bearing in mind all that what happened with Ripple XRP, it missed the last halving cycle because the SEC case. It went from the third biggest crypto to it's like number 7 or something now because
sorry, I just want to mention about XRP. I mean, one of the big things about XRP, it's a great utility because it's one of the tokens I'd say has utility. It's the banks use it, but they're selling like a billion worth of XRP every so often. So they're really flooding the market. And so you've got to basically have a billion worth of growth or money coming to XRP just to maintain the price. And that's the one element that I say is kept XRP down. I think if they didn't have that, which Ethereum doesn't, and with Ethereum, the more you use it now, it's become deflationary now because with this proof of stake. So it's actually a deflationary. So you don't have that inflation coming in terms of additional coins. That's the one positive Ethereum has. But this, I agree with you, Peter. This
escrow on the XRP, they release a billion worth a month, and then about 80% that goes in escrow. But because they've had such a huge burn on the low case, they've done something like 300 million on the low case.
Yeah,
so that's why they're burning some. It's like 300 million, and ETH's going to go through it now.
So Ethereum, it's interesting as well, was the news report, I think it was last week, that I think it's on the Ethereum Foundation website. Some people may not know, but sometimes websites that fear that the organization may be subject to court action, such as an injunction. So most people know an injunction is something that's taken out by a court in some way to prevent a company or an individual from doing something. There's a level beyond that called a super injunction. And super injunctions are really interesting because not only can you not do something, you can't admit that you've had an injunction applied against you. So super injunctions, you tend to hear about these by like sports personalities who've taken out a super injunction either against a newspaper or an individual because they not only want to not let a story get out, they don't want it to be even known that there is a story. And so some companies who fear that they might be subject to regulatory influence, say, have what are known as canaries on their website. And if that canary suddenly disappears off the website, then that's a clue of, hey guys, we've had some action that we can't actually tell you we've had. And somebody noticed, I think about a week or so ago, that there's a canary on the Ethereum website, which had disappeared. And then a day or so later, I think it was announced that it's believed that there is a state investigation underway. It was interesting. It was a state investigation. So it didn't say which state. So it could well be Switzerland, with the Ethereum Foundation being in Switzerland, or it could be any other government taking an interest. And that's where, again, the whole thing about the SEC in the US could come into play again. And we go through the whole, is Ethereum a security, blah, blah, blah type thing. But I think Ethereum tested the ground with that years ago and kind of got, from what I understand, the kind of a tacit continue type thing. So they didn't get an explicit no action letter, which is what you can do with the regulator. You can write to a regulator and say, hey, Mr. Regulator, we're about to do something that we don't believe is breaking any rules, but we'd like you to write back to confirm that you won't take any action in the event. So you can have a no action letter for a regulator. I don't believe they got that from the SEC, but they seem to get a we're not going to do anything response originally. That might now change.
The only people that I can think of, like major companies who've got that no action letter is EOS. Because they paid that 24 million, I think, and they got like a resolution letter from, but I can't think of any other major cryptocurrency that has received any of that. But yeah, that canary thing has been blowing up on Twitter all week.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It was it's the Ripple case, because they managed to surface all the Hinman documents, which was the presentation where he gave Ether the free pass, and he said it's not a security, Bitcoin and Ether, and they pushed it through the week before the insider trading on crypto rules came out for Congress. So it was like, if they didn't do that and it's a security, they've got to declare it. So they said, oh, there's stuff in that closet, which is why I thought you skirted around it, Gary. But it came out in the that's a problem when you go to court. You have
disclosure.
You've got
and discovery as well.
So discovery was what I was after.
Yep.
So the SEC tried to keep all the correspondence closed, and the judge opened them, and they got the letters, and they said it was personal opinion, and then they showed it had been sent everywhere. They'd all scribbled on it and said, "No, this is policy. You gave them a pass, but it's a security." And now it's shit. We're under pressure. We're going to have to. Oh, they've changed. It's different now because it's proof of stake, so it's not decentralized. So we can have a look at it now.
Yeah, we can revisit it.
But also, you've got to like give a lot of respect to the XRP people, because they've really been fighting for the industry. Like you say, they've burned through 300 million.
And been slammed for it right the way through. For you're not decentralized. It will underpin the CBDCs probably.
Yep.
But as they said, we're going for the banks. The first people who adopt are the banks, the military, and the CIA. They're the people who adopt. The predecessor of Facebook was LifeLog. Facebook is essentially LifeLog. They got big deep pockets, $1 trillion a year, and they test all the technology. Got no legacy systems for it.
But I think, I mean, with Ethereum, I think it's definitely going to stay as a. It's not gonna go away. They'll settle with the SEC one way or the other. Reason being because, you know, BlackRock, for example, they've put an application for the
An
Ethereum
Ethereum
ETF.
ETF.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
these guys, they're one of the darlings of Wall Street.
That's what's precipitated it. And well, JP Morgan allegedly have got massive reserves of Ether from the early days, but in multiple wallets from the ICO. This is the stuff. And of course, JP Morgan basically runs the Fed. So it's all the dirty laundry is going to come out now. It's all going to go into discovery. So
it's fascinating how these things come out, isn't it? And the impact it has, that you never quite expect things. Then all of a sudden, something kind of comes left field of, oh, well, I've just uncovered this email from 2014 that says, you know, it's fascinating stuff. It makes you really appreciate that anything you write electronically, whether it's an email or a WhatsApp message or anything, particularly if you work for a regulator, you have to be so absolutely on the ball with it, which is what I find fascinating when you sometimes read some of the comments that politicians are making via electronic means. It's like, do you folk not think this is ever going to get published? It's horrific. So,
I mean, I do think actually this is one of the things I was going to actually say. I've actually bought the book from what's it called? Roger Ver, Hijacking Bitcoin.
I just heard about that.
I recommend it.
Yeah. Amazon bestseller already, I believe.
Yeah, it's a great read. Great read. Good read.
What's the book?
It's Roger Ver's book on
Hijacking Bitcoin.
Hijacking Bitcoin. Yeah. I was talking about that with someone today who said you've got to get this book, and he said it's already a bestseller. So
he puts some of the things he puts there, which I don't think a lot of people understand. Things like Lightning. I've always said Lightning is definitely not good for Bitcoin because you have to pay money to. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing. To get a Lightning wallet, you have to actually make it to pay money for the wallet. I mean, how are you going to onboard people like that? And so, and the way it works, it basically costs about a lot of money to just set it up and then use it. But if you go and use it, maybe, I don't know, and he basically talks about centralized things like PayPal or whatever, then you can say, yeah, I'm using Bitcoin or Lightning. Because so that's what he's talking about, hijacking Bitcoin and stuff like that. It's a great take on what he thinks. And I could definitely, I mean, I do agree with some of the stuff he's written and some of them I don't. But it's a good read.
But he's interesting because he's always been an absolute, Bitcoin maxi. However, he's got his own version of Bitcoin, which he's the ultimate maxi of, which is BCH.
Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah.
I've actually got I'm using one of their mugs today from a meetup I went out with them.
Okay, yeah. I think I discovered some stickers I had from the other day when I think Roger was in London at one of the conferences I was at, and it was a classic conference because it had Roger, it had Nirul Rabini, the economics guy. It had Craig Wright.
Was that the one on Elizabeth Centre down in Westminster?
At the QE2, yeah.
Yeah.
It goes down in the absolute history of one of the most amazing conferences I've ever been to. But yeah, Roger is very pro crypto, but you can see also he's a salesman for his own product, which is BCH.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the BC, but people think that he was BCH. I remember the war, as I'd call it, between the keep Bitcoin as it is and the enlarge the blocks people. It wasn't Roger who set up BCH. Roger just came and decided to support the guys who set up BCH because they were like, we're going to do this. They forked it, and then it just started going on. And Roger just decided that, well, having used it, I think it's a better product. And then he started promoting it. But he actually wasn't the person who came up with the idea, came up with the name, who actually forked it, who did it. He just decided, well, I actually prefer this version of Bitcoin, and he supported that. But because it's such a big industry figure and who always goes on about Bitcoin Cash and also because when you went to bitcoin.com, it was all, you go to bitcoin.com, it's all Bitcoin Cash splashed all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an unfortunate thing that he talks about Bitcoin, he talks about bitcoin.com, but what people new to the market don't realize is that that's not the Bitcoin that
Yeah.
everyone else is talking about.
You
So
have to go to
BTC.
bitcoin.org.
Exactly. I do think that's a bit lacking clarity.
Well, he's made a
probably
lot of money from it because I think it gets, I don't know, it's basically it's one of the top websites in the world in terms of landing. So whatever he's selling on it, he can basically, he's getting a lot of eyeballs coming, through it. So
okay.
I think he's got an exchange, he's got a whole load of things on that site. I haven't been on it for ages.
Yeah. And to give Bitcoin Cash credit, as you say about the block size, which at least that's addressing the blockchain challenges by using the layer one, as opposed to, even Lightning is a layer two solution, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And I always say that as soon as you go layer two, you've gone away from the principle of it all being on a blockchain. Because basically you're running all the transactions on a database elsewhere. And that was the thing, again, with Dencun, so the Ethereum upgrade, where they were saying about, this is going to reduce gas fees because it means you can do the transactions off chain. It's like, what do you mean off chain? That's defeating the whole purpose of doing it on chain type thing.
Exactly. And like you say, if you then say, okay, I'm going to decentralize a layer two, then you're back to the same engineering problem that you've got with a layer one.
Yep. It's kind of interesting. So have you got any timescales around your plans of
nothing fixed, but hopefully the fork should be done by, I'd say, by a year, by summer next year, the fork should be done. And then from then on, we'll start building. Still got a few things I'm working through. A couple of people because we want to also make it as decentralized as possible. There's other things that I personally don't like in that I go into a lot of, I don't know if a lot of you guys go into all these foundations, you can go and make a proposal, just like Ethereum's EIP. You can go to Polkadot's and make stuff like that. And I always go and look and see, and if I've got if I've got the tokens of that specific chain, I'll vote my way, or if I don't, then I just read and then move on and so forth. But one thing that sticks out is a lot of those foundations have a lot of money, but they're tasked with doing everything. They're tasked with doing the marketing, they're tasked with doing the development, they're tasked with doing, so you get absolutely different proposal. One guy will come along and say, well, I do a podcast and I'd like, $1,000 so I can add and sponsor you guys on my podcast, and they'll write their own proposal. Okay. Another guy will come along and say, well, I think the next upgrade should mean we should do this to make the chain quicker or more secure. So there's no specific kind of if you
it's democratizing everything, isn't it?
I mean, if you go to Uniswap's one, what they do is they try to put things by subject. So they'll say marketing, and you can go to the marketing section. You want to talk about trading, because Uniswap pretty much is a trading thing. So they'll have that trading thing where they can do things to make it better for traders. You want to talk about the protocol, you can go to the protocol section. So they have those sections, but in the end, the vote still comes back into a centralized entity where you have somebody who has got no idea about marketing, trying to work out if this marketing idea is any good or not. Now, we all have ideas, obviously, maybe of marketing, but it does not make us all marketing people. Just like the marketing guy probably does not know anything about the technology side, but they're looking at it and thinking, well, so what we're going to do is with our tokens as well, we're going to split them up. So we're going to have several foundations. So one that will just focus on marketing, one which will focus just on the execution sharding and making sure we can deliver that and so forth. So one of the main things as well we're working on, because what we're thinking is if we have it all together, then Polkadot's one, I mean, if you go to Polkadot's one, it's been taken over by what I could say is degens, the gamblers, they come on there and they're like, why is Polkadot not doing well? Blah, 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 blah. You need to get this podcaster to put the logo on their thing. You need to, and you're reading through it. And then I don't know, maybe 30th or 40th down, you'll see something saying, oh, yeah, well, this is my idea about the power change. And they're like, oh, okay, now there's something interesting.
Yeah. But you're right as well. It's interesting that the way the voting mechanism works, generally it's based on the amount of that crypto that you hold in some way. And what that can mean is that someone who hasn't got a clue about the technical stuff, but holds a lot, can have an undue influence compared to somebody who might really, really understand the risks or the opportunities that a technical proposal provides, but holds no sway, kind of thing.
But I mean, having been involved in a lot of them and seeing what happens in the background, there's a lot of lobbying. Think of maybe US Congress, but surrounded with lobbies around it. That's what it is. It's those people who hold a lot get lobbied. You have, I wouldn't call them professional lobbies, but semi-professional people who have access and then kind of sell their access and kind of like, the only way I can think of it is lobbying.
So this is what I find fascinating around the whole crypto evolution, is that over time, it's gradually replicated what's already in place. It's just that the crypto is the mechanism to transfer the value, but everything else, the regulation reflects fiat regulation. The payments rails are reflecting payments rails. As you say, the politics going on reflects the real world politics and everything like that. And it's one of those things that I think it's sad in some ways as well. One of the things that really attracted me to crypto originally was it was an opportunity to move away from a debt-based economy.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about fiat is it's all debt-based. And you look at like when you pay money into a bank, how you become a creditor and the bank is a debtor and all this kind of stuff. And you look at mortgages, which is fascinating. The more you learn about mortgages, the more you realize that is actually almost exactly the opposite of what you think it is. Because when a mortgage is issued, everyone thinks that it's the bank or the building society that's issuing the mortgage. I learned the other day it isn't. It's actually the mortgage holder who's issuing it, kind of thing. And so you learn all these things are the opposite of what you thought. And this is what I found fascinating about crypto. The more you learn about crypto, the more you learn about the real world stuff, the more you realize that the real world is not actually the way you thought it was.
Well, we've got in the beginning you had more technical people, but now I think you've got more kind of bankers in. I mean, you have the Arthur Hayes of this world. I mean, I like Arthur Hayes, he's a funny dude, but I mean, some of the stuff he talks about, even I don't understand when he's talking about kind of like the derivative of a derivative. So you take like, I don't know, you take ETH, you stake it EigenLayer, then you can go do this. So from that one ETH, you create like 5 different tokens and you got the interest coming from here, then you got all based on one ETH.
It's beginning to sound like fractional banking.
Yeah, exactly. And they're saying, oh, the EigenLayer is a great thing. I'm like, well, that just sounds like, like you said, fractional banking.
Yeah. Go on, Peter.
While we're on banking, news last week. So the Ripple automatic market maker, the public AMM, went live last week. So there's wallets there. I'm just wondering how that's going to pan out, whether that means DEXs are going to start using it. And because currently, as you say, Ken, a lot of banks have used it. I think they've got like 500 banking partners with Ripple. They're not really public facing, but now there's an AMM there. So you can basically put a liquidity pool in there. I'm just wondering how you see, is that going to be something that people leapfrog on? Is it going to be a center of gravity for the crypto ecosystem?
I think anything that brings in liquidity will work, basically, because one of the just because there's a lot of projects that have come onto crypto that don't work. And looking back at those projects, it's not that they weren't good. It's not that they lack technical excellence. It's generally because of liquidity. They weren't able to attract liquidity. But if it's a Ripple-based product, I think it will have liquidity and therefore work.
Well, they're talking about that. You mentioned before, people say, "Oh, XRP is Ripple." No, it's not. Ripple's a company.
Yeah.
It's got products like the ledger, the liquidity pool, which I think they're rebranding as Ripple Pay. So a lot of that money,
Yeah.
expansion and the banking licenses, etc. So
Okay.
I think the one that I find an absolutely brilliant information source, and I'll give a shout out to the guy on both Twitter or X, and on I've forgotten the other channel now, TikTok. There's a guy who's absolutely brilliant if you want to know about XRP, Ripple, AMMs, and that goes by the tag Dark Horse NME4, I think it is. So you check out Dark Horse, and then I think it's NME4 typically. He's an absolute star. I'll give him a shout out definitely. That he
got me into the Ripple.
Okay. He's excellent. Yeah, they're really, really good. And he's constantly digging out more stuff, whether it's around the court cases, the liquidity providers, the market makers, the whole concept. And he has just got it all absolutely mapped.
When I saw his channel and I watched that, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? Why don't we know any of this? Why is this out in the open? And then it's, well, there's some stuff going on with the petrodollar and the BRICS alternative currency and the payment rails. And it's just when you're talking about liquidity, Ken, for the projects, I think we're in for a depression next year, not a research depression. And the big thing that hits is liquidity. And what do they do?
No, I mean, the US have just agreed to what is it, 1.2 trillion budget or something like that. I'm like, I mean,
once you can't remember how many zeros it involves, it gets busy. But you look at worldwide at the moment, we've got a fascinating kind of split right now. So you've got Turkey that's announced an interest rate and inflation of 50%, I think it is.
I know, I think there's 78 something. But Turkey, he never wanted to put up interest rates, but I think he's just had enough seeing his people suffer.
But you've got this bizarre thing that you've got Turkey with an interest rate of over 50%. Then you've got Japan, which just did a shift. They've just stopped being negative. They've just switched from minus 0.1% interest. I think it's on 0 or possibly to 0.1. So you've got this massive disparity around the world. You've got the States, as you say, who have got this money printing machine just churning dollars out, which is going to, over time, harm the dollar. You've got the UK where, allegedly, the interest rate's 5.5% at the moment, and they were surprised that they took a vote with the Bank of England the other day, and they chose not to change it, I think. So it's like you can't have a multilateral global thing going on where one part of the world it's interest rates and inflation of 50 and 100% in there, and then another area where it's 0 and everything in between. You're going to get like arbitrage going on to some degree. There's a point at which it falls apart.
That was 2008, the carry trade from Japan. People will borrowing money in Japan, edging it, and then putting it into the stock market. And the same with the Fed. When the Fed's printing all this money, the banks are taking it, but they're not putting it into the economy. They're putting it straight into all the FANGs, the tech stocks, not giving a dividend out. They're just plowing it in, and then you see, why has everything gone down? And they've unwound some of the printing. And that's a book, Nobody Prints Permanent Distortion. And just the types of stock market, it isn't value. All that's driving it is money printing.
I mean, I haven't looked at the world debt clock for a long time, but I used to not check the US one. I used to check the UK one to see how much each person, basically, who's resident, and that's like baby, child, retired, working person. last time I checked, I think each of us owed 40 grand.
Mm.
And it was, I think 92 or 93% of GDP. And I think we're near now probably at 100% of GDP. So probably we all owe 50K each.
Yeah.
So the taxpayer in the UK, in the US, it's now $250,000 per taxpayer, and they're going another $1 trillion into debt every 100 days. So you said, so I've just found out the other day that all their tax receipts now, all their income tax receipts only service the debt. So when you go into work, you're only paying the Fed to borrow the money that they printed on the back of the bond. It's money.
I think we're probably the same situation here in the UK, aren't we? Because we're at 100% GDP. That means, you know.
Well, that means you're not paying the principal off anymore. You're just paying interest.
Yeah.
And you're not even making the interest payments.
I mean, Japan is like 200. Canada's like 128%, and Italy, Spain, they're like 150%. We can't go on like this as a world.
Absolutely.
It's when. It's not if, it's when. And I think now when is going to be after the election.
So I'm going to throw in a when, which is when are we finishing this call? So sorry, guys, but we're out of time. It's a really interesting conversation. That it shows again how you end up talking about all sorts of things. But that was pretty closely related to a lot of crypto and world economy and everything. So I just want to say
that was connected to the Satoshi's white paper, wasn't it? It was economy and crypto.
Yep, that was it. It was the front page of the Times newspaper, wasn't it, about the bankers, that kind of thing. So, right, folks, going to have to close it off there. Have a great day. Thanks very much for coming along. Really enjoyed the conversation. For those who are listening and watching later on, I hope you enjoy this. Do subscribe, like, join, blah, blah, blah. See you all next week. Bye for now.